Are the British establishment trying to scare the Scots into voting to stay in the UK by refusing to let them keep the pound?
What's your view?
Well, I think Scotland are entitled to the pound as much as England, as we are down here. We all share it, and I just think, for once, you see, it's very rare. All the parties seem to be coming together for once. It'd be nice to see it more often. But the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, well, should I say the coalition, are all now coming together to, it looks to me, to bully the Scots into voting to stay with the UK.
Christina O'Doney.
Well, it did look
this
like
unity,
that.
is it bullying?
It did look like that when you have Danny Alexander, George Osborne and Ed Balls all, ganging up. And as you said, a unity, a political unity that the floods somehow didn't give rise to. But I also have to say, I think that the Scots are not going to put up with it. And the Scots are already used to having a pound that most of my shopkeepers in London won't accept. So they're not going to be scared of being, bullied over the currency. Whether in the end it is a good thing for the more serious question of, will Scotland break away, be independent, will Holyrood detach itself from Westminster, I'm not so convinced. I think a united kingdom is a better kingdom.
But Robert Winston, you're a politician as well as a scientist. You watch these things in the House of Lords. Do you think this is an attempt to scare the Scots?
It's really interesting.
Or is it a serious, do they mean it?
My immediate reaction is that, David Cameron is being remarkably altruistic, isn't he? Because, of course, it's in his interest in some ways that Scotland does secede, because that would... Don't you think so?
Well, make it easier.
No, I disagree.
You don't think,
Sorry.
You think that we lose Labour seats in Parliament. That's the issue. But having said that, I mean, to be serious for a moment, I think one of the concerns that I have, I think we're right to band together and say, look, you can't have bits of the United Kingdom that you want to have and not other bits. The fact is, if you have the pound, you have responsibility for interest rates, you have responsibility for currency control. And if the Scotlands really want to go it alone, then it's up to them to have their own border controls and their own currency. I don't think it's going to be easy for them to join the euro, and it probably won't be in their interests. So the question is, what currency will they have? Certainly not the dollar. Maybe they should have the Bitcoin. I don't know.
You sit at the back. Do you think the establishment in Westminster is trying to bully the Scots into voting no?
I think they've played right into Alex Salmond and the SNP's hands, actually. I think they've just stirred a hornet's nest up there north of the border. And I think, it's going to backfire against them. And I think the Scots will vote yes for independence now. It's that big.
Simply because they feel bullied?
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe
the Scots, we know what they're like. They're rebellious, They don't particularly like us, and especially not the Tories. I was up there a few days ago, and, they're really, a Tory government. I think the next government will be Labour, but I think that will be too late. I think being in September, they'll vote independence for sure.
I'll come back to you in a moment. Damien Green, do you think there's an animosity towards the Tory party in particular, which makes this a counterproductive thing to have done?
It's not our heartlands, but I disagree with sort of almost all of that, actually, to be fair. Robert's right, actually, and I'll make myself unpopular by speaking in praise of politicians and political parties. Everyone assumes political parties are only in it for their own narrow self-interest. It is clearly in the partisan interest of the Conservative Party for Scotland and its dozens of Labour MPs and its one Conservative MP to break away. We are campaigning as hard as we can, absolutely united party, to keep Scotland in the United Kingdom, because we think that's right for the United Kingdom and we think it's right for Scotland. So anyone who says that politicians are only in it for themselves should consider that. And Robert, as a member of the Labour Party, is very good.
But the Prime Minister hasn't been up. The Prime Minister is not going up to Scotland.
He is. The Cabinet's going up to Scotland shortly.
But he's not going to debate with the Scottish Nationals.
Well, and nor should he. Because only the Scots have a vote. So the debate in Scotland needs to be between the two campaigns in Scotland, between Alex Salmond and Alistair Darling. And I don't think the Scots will feel bullied by this. And I also, as it happens, think the Scots will be far too sensible to vote to separate from the rest of the United Kingdom, because it's in Scotland's interest as well. Because this is a reality that if you are a different country, you can't say, but we're going to have a say in your currency. And you can have different sovereign countries that come together and share a currency, and we've seen it in the euro, and that has caused a lot of strains, particularly for smaller countries. And in effect, the Alex Salmond plan would be to impose that kind of thing on everyone in the rest of Britain as well. We would have two different countries trying to run a currency. And it's much more difficult to run that in the interest of both countries. And I think it's fundamentally undemocratic, because if you want to do that sort of thing, which has a huge effect on everyone in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, then England, Wales and Northern Ireland should have a vote on this as well. And of course we don't.
But what kind of vote would you give England, Wales and Northern Ireland? One that prevented Scotland becoming independent if it chose to?
Well, if Scotland can vote on independence. What I'm saying is that if what Scotland is saying is that we want to run your currency as well, then clearly we should have a say as well, only in those circumstances.
All right, go back to you, sir. Yes.
I'm sitting on the fence, really. Although it was my question, I'm sitting on the fence. And as a half Scot, my mother's Scottish, my dad's English, I live in England, but I can understand where the Scots are coming from if they do vote to go independent, because they don't vote for Conservatives in Scotland, but yet are always run by Conservatives. That, if I was living up in Scotland, that would be my reason to go independent, irrespective of any other idea.
Janice Axon, what do you think of today's action, all three main parties, and UKIP as well, yes, or not?
Well, no, I absolutely agree.
UKIP said endorsed the thing about
we can't
sterling.
keep the pound. We can't keep the pound. He actually sees his future in Europe, so let him have the euro, and we'll see how far he gets with that. We actually believe that we're stronger together, we're better together. But when they have their referendum, and aren't they lucky they've had a referendum, because we're being denied a referendum. Dave has agreed to give them a referendum, but Carl Dave won't give us a referendum on Europe.
You can have one.
I think we'll get one. Well, no, Carl Dave. We don't actually believe Carl Dave on that one, because he's promised it before. But do you know what? At least they're having their referendum, and when we have our referendum, and I hope we do in 2017, and we'll have another referendum next year. We'll have a parliamentary referendum. And it will come down to the economy, and it will come down to jobs. Those are the two main things that people worry about. So they will have their say, and I think the Scots are a canny lot. They will actually vote to stay in, because together we're stronger.
OK. You, sir.
When they're on about what currency Scotland can use...
Sorry, start again.
When they're on about what currency Scotland can use, would they meet the criteria for entering the euro? Has anyone ever looked at that?
Not immediately.
No.
Chris Bryant.
I don't know the specific answer to that question, but I almost certainly wouldn't be immediately. There's no guarantee, incidentally, they'd be allowed to join the European Union. But I note, sir, that your name is Stuart. Obviously, a Scot. You know, there's quite a lot of Scot in you, yes. and to be honest, there's a lot of Scot in me as well. Though my brother always used to say that he was half Welsh, half English, half Scottish, which he wasn't very good at maths. But I just feel we're all part of the same thing, aren't we? Emotionally, I disagree. I don't think it will boil down to economics and things like that. I think it will boil down to the emotion of it all.
And what about the tactic of Osborne going to Edinburgh and his views being endorsed by Ed Balls, for instance?
I think you have got to lay out the facts. You can't have an independent country that is where you're expecting England then to prop up the banks, the Scottish banks, if the banks go under.
And where's
which is
the
what the Bank of England presumably would have to do.
We got £1.2 trillion worth of debt.
Exactly.
How are we going to divide
all of those,
that?
and
the Barnett formula,
I think it's perfectly legitimate to simply lay out the facts, and that's all that's happened today. And I hope you're wrong, sir. The Scots I know are taking this the whole issue very seriously. It will be an enormous step into the dark, I think. And this is just one of the many, many issues that they're going to be facing.
Just a couple of points. You, sir, over there, and then I'll come to you. Yes.
Didn't the Bank of England propped up the Irish banks when they went under?
They did, didn't they?
Yes.
They did.
£7 billion. £7 billion.
That's right.
Is that right? When the Irish banks went under, we said it was in our interest to keep Ireland afloat.
Which it was. Yes. Ireland is a very, very significant trading partner.
Wouldn't Scotland be in the same position?
Well, there's a difference between propping up someone's banks and actually allowing them to run your currency. That's a very significant.
And the other point is interest rates, of course. That Scotland would, if Scotland wants to be retain the English pound, as it were, and still have a say on interest rates, I think that would be inappropriate. And the point about devaluation as well.
Okay.
It's just that bad economics to say we want to be independent, but keep the old currency.
Right. Last point from you.
The SNP still seem to be in denial about today's decision. When are they actually going to shut up whinging and start deciding what they're going to do about it? Because the policy isn't going to change.
So you think it's up to the SNP to... But they just say this is...
still believes that we will allow them to keep the pound.
Yes.
They've been told we will not allow them to keep the pound.
But they don't believe it. They believe they will be allowed to. So what do you do then? It's a standoff.
And come up with Plan B very quickly.
They don't necessarily have to. They just say don't believe them. They don't mean it.
Well, you can say what he likes, but don't
At which point the Scottish people will decide, as they will in a referendum.
Let's go on to another question. That's good.